me to hit you again?
You're human?
I'm a man, yes.
Can I see your Idaho state license?
No, I don't have one.
You don't have one?
My person does, but I don't.
Step back.
And you're using
How's your best?
Mike, calm down. Relax. Mike.
This is Matthew Miller, a 43-year-old man who left a horrifying scene at a grocery store the other day when he violently stabbed two people inside. You might be wondering, what could have caused such bloodshed?
Stabbed somebody over a chicken Caesar salad that he was stealing.
Well, it turns out that Miller's motive was shockingly trivial. While attempting to steal an $8 salad, Miller was confronted by an employee. In a fit of rage, he stabbed one employee in the chest and another in the knee. Thankfully, the two victims survived and were taken to the hospital in stable condition. Miller didn't get far before he was arrested.
You're supposed to steal, and you're not supposed to stab people over a salad.
Despite the seriousness of his actions, Miller seemed to find humor in the whole ordeal. However, he now faces charges that could result in a life sentence. Considering the gravity of Miller's charges, Judge Mindy Glazer makes it abundantly clear that she opposes his release from custody.
Proof evident presumption great to hold you no bond. Good day.
I don't care what you say, lady. My family is CIA. That means we got authority over you and your nonsense.
Later, Miller is found guilty of 1 count of armed robbery with a deadly weapon and 2 counts of aggravated battery. As a result, he is sent to a mental health facility for treatment. This is Jeremy Shu, a 39-year-old facing charges of first-degree home invasion, car theft, identity theft, and possession of a controlled substance. Shu arrives in a wheelchair due to suffering several strokes over the years. His attorney, Walter White, is seen with him.
Preliminary matters.
I would just restate my previous request.
Shu's attorney just requested to be removed from the case. Despite Shu being in a wheelchair, even his own attorney is unsure about the severity of his condition.
What his physical health is, but I know that he's maybe not as strong as he used to be. And so I would just ask Your Honor to consider allowing me to withdraw so that he can get an attorney that he can work with.
Surprisingly, Shu decides to represent himself if he can't have things his way. As tension rises, 2 court officers position themselves behind Shu in case things escalate physically. The officers forcefully make him sit back in the chair, but Shu doesn't go quietly. Ultimately, Shu retains White as his attorney, and it turns out to be a wise decision. White negotiates a deal where Shu pleads no contest to most of the charges, leading to a reduced sentence of 2.5 years in a county jail. This is 21-year-old Robert Peterson, the man wearing a fur cap. He's the one recording this footage as he enters the Kootenai County Courthouse in Idaho. Peterson is attending a hearing for a minor traffic infraction, where he was caught riding his bicycle at night without a light. However, right from the moment he enters the courthouse, it becomes evident that this won't be a routine security check.
It's clearly posted on the entrance building.
What? Clearly posted that I have to forfeit my right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure?
Coming into this building.
To be precise, Peterson identifies himself as a sovereign citizen, asserting that he is a free man with certain rights and privileges. Instead of making the situation worse, one of the bailiffs chooses to go along with Peterson's behavior and ideas. Once he passes through security, Peterson locates a seat at the back of the courtroom and continues recording the events. The bailiffs make the decision to evacuate the courtroom and directly question Peterson. As evident, this bailiff maintains his sense of humor amidst the situation.
Are you human?
I'm a man.
You're human?
I'm a man, yes.
Can I see your Idaho state license?
No, I don't have one.
You don't have one?
My person does, but I don't.
After seemingly diffusing the situation, the bailiffs guide everyone back into the courtroom, except for one person. When Peterson refuses to step back, Chief Bailiff Pete Barnes fires his taser.
Stop, please. I'm not doing anything wrong. Hey, You know what? You guys are really overstepping your bounds right now.
The answer to that question is that Peterson was charged with 3 counts of battery and 1 count of contempt of court. Later, he entered an offered plea, which means he didn't admit guilt, but acknowledged there was enough evidence to potentially convict him. As part of the plea deal, jail time was waived, and he was ordered to pay a fine for his initial charge of riding a bike at night without a light. This is Diego Jose Zayas Martinez. He's facing charges for making terroristic threats and stabbing a man. Recently, he appeared in court for his bond hearing, during which his bail was set at $100,000. As he was being escorted by a deputy to the bus, you can see Zayas Martinez. Similar to other defendants, he is wearing handcuffs, but his feet are not restrained. Taking advantage of this, he decides to make a run for it. Let's take a closer look. Zayas Martinez seizes an opportunity to escape, slipping away just beyond the reach of the second deputy. Immediately, the officers give chase, but one of them decides to stay with the other prisoners. Zayas Martinez manages to reach the parking lot, and a deputy is in pursuit, trying to close the gap. Despite the deputy's efforts to intercept him, Zayas Martinez stays 1 step ahead. It seems like he jumps over a fence, making it appear that he might have a chance to get away for good. However, his escape is short-lived. Later that day, a concerned citizen informs a sheriff's deputy that the man he's searching for is hiding under her house. As a result, Zayas Martinez is captured and taken back to the courthouse. In light of his escape attempt, his original bond is increased to $500,000, and he now faces an additional charge of third-degree escape. Meet Michael McDonald, a 35-year-old individual who was granted bond while awaiting trial for various charges, such as burglary, forgery, and perjury. These charges originated from a lengthy and highly disputed divorce and custody case, which ultimately resulted in his ex-wife obtaining a no-contact order against him. The court prohibited McDonald from contacting his ex-wife and their 2 children. However, the state alleges that McDonald violated his parole by disregarding the no-contact order. As a result, he faces potential consequences for violating the terms of his parole while awaiting trial for the criminal charges.
Release conditions was to have no contact with the individual, his ex-wife. Approximately a month ago in June, he then mailed a number of items to his wife's address.
According to McDonald's lawyer, the items mentioned in the previous statement were actually gifts intended for his children. The lawyer contends that McDonald was unaware that sending these gifts would be considered a violation of the no-contact order. As a result, they argue that McDonald should be permitted to stay out on bond until his trial approaches.
Mr. McDonald is not violent nor a threat to the community. He has had no allegations of violence.
The defense team is trying to portray McDonald's actions as an innocent mistake, but Judge Kathy Hardcastle is well aware of the history of the case and remains unconvinced by their argument. The judge also points out McDonald's past record of unstable behavior during his divorce proceedings, which eventually led to the issuance of the no-contact order.
Potential danger to his children because he lied to the court about surrendering his weapons.
Shortly after the judge announces her decision that McDonald indeed violated the conditions of his parole, 2 court marshals approach him with handcuffs. It's unclear what McDonald is trying to say to the judge as he pulls his arms away. However, it's evident that McDonald is not ready to cooperate. As you can hear, McDonald's attorney calmly attempts to get him to settle down. Despite the threat of being tased, McDonald continues to resist, and his lawyers have had enough of his behavior. As more officers arrive to restrain McDonald, he continues to plead his case. Michael McDonald was convicted on numerous charges, including burglary, forgery, and perjury, all related to his divorce case. He received a sentence of 24 to 68 months in Nevada State Prison, with credit for 215 days already served. Additionally, due to his refusal to be handcuffed during the hearing, McDonald was charged with resisting an officer. This is David E. Taylor, a 42-year-old man. On camera, he might seem like an ordinary person, but to the followers of his multi-million-dollar megachurch, he is revered as someone who is exceptionally holy and close to God.
The name of the apostle?
Yes.
David Taylor asserts that he had a personal visit from Jesus Christ and now serves as a spiritual guide to others through his nonprofit organization called Joshua Media Ministries International, JMMI. Today, Taylor is being questioned in a divorce case that involves one of his volunteers, a woman who generously donated over $1 million to his ministry. As part of the divorce proceedings, lawyers are seeking details about how that donated money was utilized by the ministry.
November 29th, 2013, JMMI paid over $6,000 to Louis Vuitton.
Yes.
What would that be for?
Well, this is for clothes concerning my TV.
Things become more intense as Taylor is questioned about the luxury cars owned by the ministry. The challenging questioning doesn't stop there, as he is further asked about a $2.8 million mansion that the ministry lists as a residential center. During the questioning, the lawyer catches Taylor referring to the property as a home.
A place that the ministry owns. Well, not own, we're in the process of buying that.
All right, so where does the number $2,844,000 come from on your asset and liability?
Although Taylor's deposition was initially part of a divorce case, it later had significant repercussions. The video, which lasted over 3 hours, was posted online and led to a wave of criticism against both Taylor and his ministry, with numerous allegations of misused funds circulating on the internet. Despite facing negative publicity, David E. Taylor remains dedicated to spreading his gospel globally. This is Terry Thompson. He's facing murder charges in connection with the death of 24-year-old John Hernandez. The incident took place at a restaurant when an intoxicated Hernandez, accompanied by his wife, stepped outside. At that moment, Thompson arrived with his daughters and allegedly witnessed Hernandez urinating in the parking lot. An argument ensued, and Thompson claims that Hernandez threw a punch. In the video footage, you can see Thompson, wearing a red shirt, wrestling Hernandez to the ground and putting him in a chokehold while getting on top of him. Meanwhile, Thompson's wife, Shauna, who is an off-duty sheriff's deputy, arrives at the scene. In the scene, Shauna is seen holding Hernandez's arm down, while Thompson, who is much larger, has Hernandez pinned to the ground. A woman tries to record the incident, but other bystanders obstruct her view as the struggle continues in the background. After the confrontation, Thompson and his wife eventually released Hernandez, but by then, he was unconscious. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, Shauna began administering CPR to Hernandez. Paramedics arrived and rushed him to the hospital. Sadly, 3 days later, Hernandez succumbed to his injuries and passed away. Both Thompson and his wife were charged with murder and entered not guilty pleas. During Terry Thompson's trial, the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision, resulting in a hung jury, with 11 out of 12 jurors voting not guilty. Consequently, the state decided to retry him. In the second trial, the prosecution introduced new witnesses and delved into Thompson's history, claiming he was a violent man with a quick temper, even assaulting his own children in the past. They presented footage of the incident in court, arguing that Thompson used excessive force, keeping a defenseless Hernandez in a chokehold for over 3 minutes.
24-year-old John Hernandez gives up. At the moment, 24-year-old John Hernandez taps out.
At the same time, Thompson's lawyer argued that it was an act of self-defense. They contended that Hernandez, who was intoxicated on the night of the incident, was actually the aggressor, and, according to his own wife's testimony, had difficulty handling his alcohol.
Now, he's an ass. Those are her words, not mine.
After carefully considering all the evidence presented, the jury reached a verdict. Before Thompson receives his sentence, which could range from 2 years to life in prison, Hernandez's wife displays an act of forgiveness towards him. Now Judge Kelly Johnson reads out the terms of Thompson's sentence.
His punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 25 years.
Thompson received a 25-year prison sentence in Texas and won't be eligible for parole until he turns 55 in the year 2031. He filed an appeal with the state, but it was denied. As for his wife, Shauna, she was fired from the sheriff's office, but the murder charge against her was dropped as the prosecution believed they did not have sufficient evidence to convict her. This is David St. John, the defendant in this case, and he is charged with aggravated sexual abuse of a kid and felony possession of a weapon. St. John allegedly brought a teenage girl to a motel and then raped her. When the attack occurred, the 39-year-old already had 6 felony convictions and was out on bond for 3 other offenses. One of the ongoing allegations against him was possession of the gun used in the alleged assault.
Sexual assault of a child older than 14 but younger than 17.
As the charges are being read, David St. John appears uneasy and fidgety. Then, unexpectedly, he walks over to the front row without anyone attending to him. David St. John repeats the question, "Did you learn your lesson?" before suddenly punching the man in a surprise attack. The victim runs away while an officer quickly rushes over and tackles St. John to subdue him. Even as he's being handcuffed, David St. John continues to offer advice. It's not clear why David St. John attacked the man, but as he's escorted out, he makes a final comment. Fortunately, the victim of the attack appears to walk away unharmed. No additional charges were brought against David St. John. He remained in jail while waiting for his trial. These are divorced parents, Roshana and Colin Morrison, who have been engaged in a heated courtroom battle for 3 long days.
His dad lives in Durham, can go on vacations with friends, take mistresses out to eat, take her on vacation, and can't seem to see his son.
The mother, Roshana, claims that her ex-husband abandoned their 3-year-old son and hasn't paid child support. On the other hand, the father argues that she withheld their son from him and is seeking permanent custody. The judge, however, is displeased with both of them. Yes, he did so 3 times. Afterward, Judge Hill shifts his attention towards Roshana. Roshana eventually calms down, and finally, after 3 intense days in the courtroom, the judge delivers his decision.
If all persons have custody of our child, I mean, joint custody.
Just say, I can't do this. This is a disgrace. What you guys are doing, you need to let your son.
As officers attempt to restrain her, Morrison's brother, Sharon Smith, emerges from the back of the courtroom. Initially, he tries to help by calming down his sister, but when his efforts prove futile and Roshana throws a powerful right hook, Big Brother finds himself caught in the middle. Officers try to restrain him, but he manages to send one of them flying. Meanwhile, the judge quickly exits the scene. As one deputy struggles to gain control of Morrison, another puts her brother in handcuffs. Even more officers arrive to de-escalate the situation and restore order. As Morrison and Smith are being taken away, their mother is also restrained by officers in the back of the courtroom. Smith and his mother were sentenced to 48 hours in jail for resisting a public officer, while Morrison received a 30-day sentence. Following the incident, Morrison and her husband reached a joint custody agreement for their child. Judge James Hill faced public reprimand by the North Carolina Supreme Court for improperly exercising his contempt powers, failing to maintain order and decorum, and making inappropriate comments during the courtroom proceedings.